Former U.S. President and current frontrunner for the Republican nomination, Donald Trump, said on Tuesday that Alexei Navalny was a very brave man who probably should not have returned to Russia without assigning any blame for the Russian opposition leader's unexpected death. Trump, who has expressed admiration for Vladimir Putin during his White House tenure and afterward, continued to compare himself to Navalny, implying that they both had faced politically motivated prosecutions.
Navalny is a very sad situation, and he's very brave. He was a very brave guy because he went back. He could have stayed away, and frankly, probably would have been a lot better off staying away and talking from outside of the country as opposed to having to go back in, because people thought that could happen, and it did happen, and it's a horrible thing. But it's happening in our country, too.
Speaking during a town hall interview with Fox News in South Carolina ahead of Saturday's Republican primary in the state, Trump made no mention of Vladimir Putin, part of his long-standing pattern of refusing to denounce the Russian leader. Trump first compared himself to Putin critic Alexei Navalny in a post on his own social media account on Monday, writing Navalny's death, quote, has made me more aware of what is happening in our country. It is a slow, steady progression with crooked radical left politicians, prosecutors, and judges leading us down a path to destruction. Trump doubling down on those comparisons last night.
Do you see yourself as a potential political prisoner in the United States, because that's their goal, is to put you in jail behind your bars, wait for the rest of your life?
If I were losing in the polls, they wouldn't even be talking about me.
The Fox town hall, which was pre-recorded Tuesday afternoon, marked Trump's first extended remarks about Navalny since Russian officials announced his death, and 4 days before he competes against Nikki Haley in South Carolina's Republican presidential primary. Earlier in the day, Haley, who served as governor of South Carolina until joining the Trump administration, vowed to stay in the race.
South Carolina will vote on Saturday, but on Sunday, I'll still be running for president. I'm not going anywhere.
But at the town hall, Trump questioned why his former ally was still competing.
She's not working. She's here. She's down by 30, 35 points. And everybody knows her. You're not supposed to lose your home state. Shouldn't happen anyway. And she's losing it big. I mean, really, I said bigly and bigly.
Why do you think she's staying in the race?
I don't think she knows how to get out, actually. I really don't.
In the hour-long conversation, Trump and moderator Laura Ingraham touched on a number of different issues, including the state's continued support for Ukraine, with the former president dodging questions about how he would end the war, but took aim at other NATO countries for not providing more aid.
We're in for over $200 billion. They're in for $35 billion.
We spent about $100 billion so far, but it will be $160.
It's a difference of $150 billion. They've got to start paying up.
However, according to CNN fact-checker Daniel Dale, that's not true.
Those numbers appear pulled out of thin air. They're not even close to true. According to one reputable tracker of aid to Ukraine, the Kiel Institute, which is based in Germany, it is actually EU countries and EU institutions that are far outpacing the U.S. when it comes to aid commitments to Ukraine. $156 billion for the EU, starting in 2022, around when the war began, to $73 billion to the U.S.
Trump's comments come as the White House attacks House Republicans for going on recess without approving a $95 billion defense spending bill that has already been approved by the Senate. And joining us with more on the current state of the U.S. presidential election is Professor of Political Science and International Affairs and Director of the Center for Leadership and Media Studies at the University of Washington, Stephen Farnsworth. And Stephen, yesterday we saw former President Trump compare the death of Putin critic Alexei Navalny to his own legal struggles while failing to condemn Vladimir Putin. What do you make of the comparison and Trump's inability to call out Putin?
Well, from the very start of Trump's period of time in public life, Donald Trump has been extraordinarily pro-Moscow. This is despite all of the horrible things that have happened under the years of Putin's rule, from the death of Navalny and other people before that, the invasion of Ukraine not once but twice, the attacks in Georgia. There is a whole litany of crimes against Russians and against the world that Vladimir Putin has committed. And somehow Donald Trump finds it convenient to say none of these things. And the Republican Party, which used to be very anti-Russia, much of the Republican Party is now very, very inclined to think about Russia the way Putin would like the world to think about Russia, and the way Trump, in all honesty, would think about Russia.
Speaking of Russia, U.S. intelligence agencies say they interfered in the 2016 election with the goal of sabotaging Hillary Clinton and increasing political discontent in the United States. Do you see them trying something like that again, and are they already doing it?
Well, we already know from some of the things that have come out about the efforts to impeach the president, Joe Biden, that there's been Russian efforts to try to put disinformation into the narrative. And in fact, some of the Republicans in the House that previously talked about impeaching the president were in some ways duped by this Russian information. They wanted to believe it, and so they took Putin's word for it. Of course, Donald Trump himself often said that he took Putin's word over that, even of U.S. intelligence agencies. And so this is a real 180-degree turnabout for a lot of Republicans who used to think very negatively about Putin before Donald Trump came along.
Despite Trump's legal issues, most polls, including key battleground states, show Trump currently leading Joe Biden in the race for the White House. Why do you think the Biden campaign is struggling right now, and how can they turn it around between now and November?
Well, I think that Donald Trump is very effective at connecting with those base Republican voters. About 45% of the electorate is likely to vote for Donald Trump, regardless of any criminal charges against him, anything he says about Russia or anything else. The struggle for Joe Biden, I think, is to reach those voters who may not be enthusiastic about Joe Biden, but would prefer him to Trump. Will they turn out or will they stay home? That's going to be the key question. And one of the key issues, of course, going forward is the economy and the extent to which Joe Biden can look to 2024 as an improved economic environment may create an environment that's more favorable to him. Of course, if the economy doesn't improve, then he may lose.
While Trump has a huge lead in the GOP primary, candidate Nikki Haley said just yesterday she will remain in the race no matter the result in her home state of South Carolina Saturday. Why do you think she refuses to drop out of the race, and what sort of impact will she have between now and the election?
Well, I think it makes sense for Nikki Haley to stay in the race. The possibility that something happens to Donald Trump between now and the convention is not theoretical. He may get convicted of a crime at some point. And that may create an opening for Nikki Haley, who will finish second in this process, to be on deck for a scenario in where the party either turns on Donald Trump or Donald Trump's legal challenges make him an unappealing general election candidate. Those kinds of things may help her. My guess, though, is that Donald Trump's delegates will not turn to Nikki Haley, even if they have to turn away from Donald Trump for one reason or another. They'll probably choose a Trump-like figure. So Haley may be looking more towards 2028 and the possibility that she would do better 4 years from now.
Stephen, thank you for joining us this evening on Trending Now.
Sure thing. Have a good one.